Hi there everybody, Dave here from HeyUGuys.com, and today I am joined by the wonderful John Lyus
Hello, bonjour, everyone.
and the amazing Stefan Pape,
Hello there.
who will be referred to from this moment forth as Stefanovic Papovich.
Yes, well, that's my middle name.
That's his name. And today we shall be talking about the films out today. Woo! Normally I think we'll probably try and record this the day before the films are out, but better late than never. So today we are going to start with Beauty and the Beast. It's a little ditty for you. John and I haven't seen this film. It is a remake or a retelling of the
A reimagining, I think, is the word, because that just sounds better. It just sounds cool. Reimagining, yeah.
Of a Disney classic, starring Emma Watson, Dan Stevens, and a whole host of other A-list talent. Stefan, you've seen it. Give us your thoughts.
Well, it's quite a tough one to review in some ways because I did really enjoy it. It's very charming. It's enchanting. It has that kind of captures the same kind of essence of the 1991 animation, but there's an overriding sense of it just feeling like it doesn't quite need to exist, despite the fact I enjoyed it. I felt the Jungle Book was warranted in its kind of existence because the kind of the new means of storytelling and technology made it such a visual kind of extravaganza on the big screen. Whereas this Beauty and the Beast kind of live action reimagining it just feels like it's not really bringing the story forward or doing anything new. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've got a real nostalgic kind of relationship with this movie because I was 3 or 4 years old when it came out, and I love the songs. And when there's Be My Guest is Be Our Guest, sorry, is on the big screen, and there's certain scenes and lines that I remember from my childhood. I get a real kind of warm feeling inside, but it doesn't quite feel like it necessarily needs to exist. I think it was Whitney Houston who once said, "It's not right, but it's okay."
It's, I think that's right,
that's just how I feel about this. It shouldn't. It's not right. It shouldn't really exist, but it's all right. Yeah.
What about Emma Watson? Is she good enough in the role? Because she, in the trailers I've seen and in the scenes that I've seen, she sings, pleasantly, but she still has this look of anguished earnestness to her, which she does a lot, and it really takes me out of the film. Is she a good enough leading lady in this?
She's not that great in the movie, but I don't think it actually matters that much in this instance because it's such a big grandiose movie where it's so much about what is the look of it and the kind of feel. So it's all about the costumes and the set design and stuff like that, and the big musical numbers. That I don't think it requires that kind of nuance in her performance. I think she almost becomes a bit of a cipher. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's obviously the integral part in this movie, but I find this film is all about what's going on around her, and I think she is sort of at times left slightly wanting in her performance, but I don't think that it's too detrimental to the film. I think she just about gets away with it because it's such a big kind of adventure movie that I don't think it needs that really subtle, dramatic curve. Yeah.
What about the animation and the CG and sort of the live action melding together? Because it looked a little odd when we were starting to see him just come out. Does it work in the flow of the film? Does it ever take you out of it?
No, I think it completely works. I mean, the one thing I think you can't really criticize this movie on, what front you can't criticize it on, is the kind of visual side of it. I think aesthetically, it's really gratifying. I mean, the sets, it looks like it's all been set in kind of Disneyland. It's all kind of big and colourful and really quite sort of vibrant as well in its depiction. So I think the CGI is used really well. And there's some scenes that I felt in the animation, you've got this freedom to do whatever you want, really, in an animation. I think anything's possible because you can just draw it and it comes to life. So that was always going to be a challenge, but this feels very choreographed. It feels there's no clunkiness that human beings naturally bring. It feels like it's got a real flow to it, and I think the CG of the Beast and some of the big scenes, and obviously we've got sort of talking teacups and candlesticks, and it all feels really quite magical. Now, I think that side of it really works. I think this film ticks pretty much all boxes apart from its just need to exist, which is quite a big box.
I think what I keep getting surprised about is the cast. I forgot Ewan McGregor was in it. I forgot Kevin Kline was in it until just looking at these posters, and those are some massive names. And then you've got Stanley Tucci and Gandalf's in it, Ian McKellen. Everyone. Emma Thompson's in it. The list goes on. It's a rather exceptional cast.
It is, but I mean, sadly, for most of those that you mentioned, so Ewan McGregor and Sarah McKellen and Emma Thompson as well, who's in there, Stanley Tucci, Audra McDonald. The only kind of downside of it is that they are sort of lending their vocals. It's almost like they're doing a sort of animation movie because they're playing the Talking Teacups, or, Mrs. Potts or Lumiere and characters like that. So they're more there for their voices. So we don't get to quite see them in their full glory. But at the same time, hearing Ewan McGregor do a French accent is just joyous because it's hilarious at every point. But I think it always helps a movie. I think when you leave the supporting roles in the hands of such capable performers like they have here, it just gives it that kind of sort of quality control, I think. And it's like I said, this film is really entertaining. I just think if you did have a child that you'd like to introduce to this world, I think you'd probably just want them to watch the animation. But this does work on many levels, and the performances are definitely one of the areas, perhaps Emma Watson aside, where I think it's sort of it works.
Is Luke Evans good in it? Because obviously that's a main
yes.
action part.
Yeah, I just realised I haven't even mentioned Luke Evans yet. I think Luke Evans and Josh Gad, who plays LeFou, who's probably the most well-realised character in terms of changing from the animation, because in the animation LeFou was this sort of weird little sort of troll creature. He's actually a sort of more fully fledged role, and I think that they're the two best things about this. I think that the Gaston and LeFou scenes are so entertaining, and Josh Gad brings a real comedic kind of presence to this film, and also obviously there's the kind of romantic narrative between them, which is quite again a new aspect, I think, of this that isn't in the original.
Exclusively gay moment, according to Disney. I think that's.
It's really fun. The way it works is really funny. It's Josh Gad is just LeFou is infatuated by Gaston, and it's that those scenes between them are probably my favourite in the movie.
Excellent, cool. Well, what did we give it? Review 3, wasn't it?
Yeah, 3 stars. I think again that sort of sums up my overall thoughts of that. It's all right. I just have a problem with it. I just would like them to see Disney really do some more sort of original stories. I think we looked at sort of Zootropolis last year, which was so excellent, and it's just a shame that their big movie coming out this kind of spring happens to be a remake. That's the only kind of shame, I think, but it's a well-made film. I'm
looking forward to seeing it. Let us know in the comments if you're looking forward to seeing it, and if you have seen it, let us know what you thought of it, and the standout performances, or if you think that whether this needed to be remade or not, or if they should have just left it alone as a classic animation.
And if you've got any other Whitney Houston lyrics that you want to credit as well to Beauty and the Beast, then I think go for it.
Yeah,
I only offered the one. So
in fact, ignore everything I've said and just do that. So next up, we've got let's do Get Out. Boom. So Get Out. Stefan, you tell us because you've seen this too.
Yeah, so this is great. This is by Jordan Peele, who is obviously known mostly in America for his comedic work, but this is his sort of first deviation into the world of horror, and it's a really fascinating movie because, I mean, paranoia in the horror genre is such a prevalent theme. I think, whether it's you're scared of aliens coming down from space, or if you're scared of there being a ghost kind of coming in at your home at night, that sense of paranoia is what it sort of alleviates so much kind of tension in this genre. And what I love about this movie is that it takes a very contemporary, very kind of relevant, I guess, sense of paranoia, which is being black in America at the moment. So that's what it's using as its horror device. And I think that if you look at like It Follows or The Babadook, I think the best horror movies of recent years are the films that completely tap into very real human themes and human flaws rather than the kind of supernatural, which is what this is doing. So the idea is that it's Daniel Kaluuya who plays Chris Washington, and he's invited to his girlfriend's parents' house for the weekend. His girlfriend's played by Alison Williams, and it's when he's there, he's I think on his way there, he sort of asks his girlfriend, do your parents know I'm black? And she says, no, why would that matter? And then when he gets there, he realizes that perhaps it does, because he's a black man in a very white suburban neighborhood, and it's all about just the way, it's all the sort of little glances, always looking over his shoulder, and whether he's being judged, if people have, how people are treating him due to the color of his skin. But it doesn't feature kind of redneck kind of right-wing racism. It's the kind of more subtle liberal racism, which this is casting an eye over, and it's a really fascinating social study as much as it is a horror movie.
Do you know the word that I would use to describe this film?
Go on.
Disturbing.
There we are.
I'll tell you why, because oh look, Hey You Guys did. That was a TV advert. That I
do that all the time. Whenever I see a poster on the tube with one of our quotes, and I'm with someone I know, I go, "Oh, look at that movie! Look what Hey You Guys called that movie. Edgy. Look at that.
Outstanding.
What mastermind said that about that? It is disturbing. Yeah.
But Stefan, one of the things that we were talking about just before we started this was that it feels a little like a Black Mirror episode, and I think what I meant by that is that not only was Daniel Kaluuya also in 15 Million Merits from the first season of Black Mirror, but also you have films like this, and like It Follows, as you mentioned, but also it seems to me like this is more to do with class as much as it is to do with race. Now, you think of the Purge films where you have the elite, the white elite, sort of taking on, the underclass. And I wonder, do those elements of the social side of things come into play at all?
Oh, they definitely do. I think this film wouldn't work had it been, like I said, if it is in kind of a southern America kind of redneck town or something. It has to take place in this quite affluent kind of white society. And there were lots of parallels drawn in this movie to the kind of the period of slavery in America as well. And obviously that was, well, generally speaking, that was quite rich, quite affluent, kind of white people that were involved in that as well. So it has that kind of those parallels are quite important in this movie. So it's very much about liberal racism. That is why this is so interesting. It subverts kind of expectations in that regard. And I think class is a huge part of this movie. Yeah, it's very much about it, and also when he arrives, the lead character Chris arrives at his girlfriend's parents' house. They have a black groundsman and a black maid, and I think that's very important little details, that it's not, you wouldn't just get that at a kind of sort of working class town in Texas. It needs to have that upper class kind of society, which plays a huge part into this narrative. You're right, and I think the Black Mirror parallels are also quite interesting because they seem quite true as well, just in a sense that this isn't your typical supernatural horror. Black Mirror, the whole point of it is it's always very, even though it's fictionalized and a lot of it is quite overstated, it's very much steeped in reality. And this film does a similar thing where it takes a very real world that we can find a lot of resonance with, but then what it does is it just implements kind of these quite surrealistic aspects, I suppose, which is what Black Mirror does so well. So I think there are definitely shades of that, not just the fact that Daniel Kaluuya obviously has been in both.
Jordan Peele, this is his first film as a director, and it's obviously a horror film, be it a social horror film or whatever, but does he get the direction of the film right?
Oh, completely. And I think, and also the writing of it. I think it's one of those films I was kind of noticing while I was watching it, but I think you'd really pick up on it a second time, which is it feels like every line in the early stages has implications for later on. It's a real masterclass in suspense building. You feel that there's just early on, they run over, when they're on their way to the parents' house, they run over a deer, and you just get that kind of FUD, and then they sort of speaking about the deer, and then that becomes a bit of a metaphor for what's to come. And it's a real kind of, the way every scene has implications for later on in the movie is incredible. It's a real, you would never know this is by someone who's never made a horror movie before. It feels like a real masterclass in the kind of horror storytelling, and it abides by all the tropes and all the same devices that we recognize, but in a very unique way. I'm sure Jordan Peele will probably return back to comedy and make other movies of other genres, but if he does make another horror in the future, it'd be one I'd be absolutely ecstatic to go and see.
Cool. So Get Out, I've heard, is one that you want to know as little amount about as possible before going to watch it. So again, let us know in the comments what you think of it when you've seen it. Moving on, we've got Personal Shopper, which is Kristen Stewart's new film, which is always going to get a lot of attention. It's played the festivals around the world, and so James Kleinman was at the New York Film Festival and he filmed a press conference while he was out there, so you can watch that on our YouTube channel. But Stefan, what's this one about, and is it any good?
Well, yeah, it's fantastic, just to start off. But no, it's about Kristen Stewart plays a character called Maureen, who is based in France, and basically we kind of can't quite gather why she's there, but we gathered that she is overcoming quite a tragic family accident, and she starts to try and connect with otherworldly kind of spirits, ghosts, for use of a more accessible term, and it all takes place in the kind of fashion underworld of Paris. So she works for quite a wealthy kind of model who she's the personal shopper for, and that whole very kind of naturalistic examination of kind of the Parisian society and that particular world is just enriched by this supernatural element of the fact that she's trying to connect to the kind of to spirits and to ghosts, and it's I guess in some ways sort of similar to Get Out. It's a really quite realistic drama with quite horror sort of thriller type tendencies, and it's not anywhere near as much of a kind of a horror movie as Get Out is, but it has got shades of that, but in a really subtle way, which is what makes this so good. And it's by Olivier Assayas, and I actually interviewed him a couple of years ago when he made a film called Clouds of Sils Maria, which Kristen Stewart was also the lead role in, and he said he thinks she's the best actress of her generation. And I remember at the time thinking, I'm not 100% sure if I agree with that. But as sort of time's progressed, and she's now made movies with Woody Allen, and this being one of her best performances yet, it's hard to maybe not disagree, but it's definitely a talking point. She's absolutely terrific in this movie, and I think any of the kind of shackles that come with the kind of Twilight, you can almost not. Yeah, stigma. I was almost going to say burden. It's not a burden, of course, but I think that she has gathered such a huge following off the back of that. And I think she's worked so hard to just move herself away and become a really independent, unique, quite innovative actress. And she's making really interesting projects. And this is probably one of the most interesting she's made yet. And she's absolutely terrific in it. It's a real Hitchcockian thriller with a kind of supernatural edge, which I think in itself sort of completely sold it to me.
It's interesting that she's also got a film out in the same week as Emma Watson, because they have similarities in the way that they...
Same director as well. Bill Condon directed Beauty and the Beast, and he did the last 2 Twilight films.
Well, there you go, you see. But it shows how the actors have sort of taken on, their paths after a big franchise has finished. And I think Kristen Stewart's got probably the more interesting trajectory so far, because if you think about... some of the stuff that Emma Watson has done, her smaller films haven't really taken off, whereas I'm hoping this is going to, not because I'm really interested to see it, but also because I think as an actress, I'm more invested in what Kristen Stewart is going to do. I mean, she was in Certain Women as well, am I right?
Yeah.
Kristen Stewart, and that was just a phenomenal film. And if you, I'm not saying that Emma Watson couldn't play it, but she hasn't sought out those roles. I mean, she's going for things like Beauty and the Beast and like The Circle, which is coming out next sometime in the summer. It's just interesting because you want to hang that kind of a film on someone like Kristen Stewart rather than Emma Watson, I think.
What was the film that Kristen did in Cuba? Guantanamo Bay.
Oh yeah, that was great.
It was amazing, and her performance. It was. I mean, if you
never got released in the UK, that film
was that Camp X-Ray. Was that
Camp
the one?
X-ray? Well done. Yeah, I don't know where I watched it then. Must be
London Film Festival. It played out.
Oh, I didn't go to that. So, I was there, but I didn't see anything. As per usual. But I'd liken Kristen Stewart to Daniel Radcliffe in the way I watched Imperium this week, and if you see things like Swiss Army Man as well, you compare that to Harry Potter, and it's worlds apart. And Kristen Stewart and Daniel Radcliffe seem to really be purposefully taking these quite different roles, and
I think people are trusting her because she's such a good actress. She wouldn't be getting roles like this and working with filmmakers like this if she wasn't up to the kind of task. And I think that this is more, if anything, just a reflection of her ability as an actress, that she's getting roles along. I mean, Olivia Assayas is an incredible filmmaker who's one of the best kind of filmmakers working today. And I think that the reason he keeps going back to her is not because she might bring a few of her Twilight fans along with her, which I think does go into the mind of some producers when they are casting people from franchises. I think the reason people like Olivia Assayas are working with her are purely and strictly because of the fact that she's a really dependable leading lady that will do a great job, and I think this film is a perfect example of that.
Absolutely cool. So yeah, check out the press conference on the YouTube channel or on HeyUGuys.com as per usual. And again, let us know when you've seen the film. It's played around the world already quite a bit, I think. So I think a lot of territories have already got it, but we just get it today. So if you're in the UK, let us know. And if you've already seen it, let us know what you think.
So yeah, also out this week, because it's a really good week for movies. Actually, I think that kind of typical post Oscars lull has not quite kicked in just yet, because The Salesman is out this week, which won the Oscar actually for Best Foreign Language Films by Asghar Farhadi. And if you're a fan of his work, then this film, I'm sure you'll just adore. It follows that same formula all of his movies sort of seem to follow, which is that first half being very mundane, thriving in the whole kind of notion of just everyday life, getting to know the characters on quite an intimate level, and then something massive happens like halfway through, and the second half of the movie is just gripping, and this film is terrific. And I think Tony Erdmann was a really great movie, which I probably would have just pipped for the best foreign language film, but The Salesman was a worthy winner. And then also out, there's another foreign language film, although interestingly penned by Paul Laverty, who is Ken Loach's regular collaborator, and that's The Olive Tree. Quite similar. I mean, obviously this is Spanish, so it's quite different to Ken Loach's work, but it has that same kind of story of the underdog. It shares similarities to I, Daniel Blake in that regard. It's about the kind of the smaller man trying to overcome something quite larger than him, and I think it's quite an interesting story with a really great leading turn from Anna Castillo as the lead role of Alma. And then finally, it's Gleeson, which is just rounding up what is such a good week for film. This is a documentary about the American footballer Steve Gleeson, who sadly was diagnosed with ALS syndrome, which is obviously the same disease that Stephen Hawking has got as well. And it's just, his wife was pregnant at the time of his diagnosis, and he decided to do like a video diary for his unborn child, which is just basically chronicling his whole journey from being basically one of the most important kind of players for the New Orleans Saints to slowly just physically deteriorating and not losing ability to talk and losing ability to walk, and just watching that process quite slowly in front of your own eyes is a really moving film that is quite difficult to sit through. But it's
you told me that you really struggled with this one.
Oh, I just cried the whole way through it.
I know I would.
But it's very good. It's a really rewarding experience. I just think you've just got to be prepared that it's not quite an easy one.
So what's the one film to watch this week?
If I had to choose, I would probably say, personally, I'd probably say The Salesman, because I think that was my favourite film of the week. But I do think that Get Out is probably the film. It's a sort of tie between the two. I say Get Out is the more accessible one that you'll find in all the kind of cinemas probably near you. So it's probably the easier one to get to. But for the more kind of art house fans amongst us, I think The Salesman is my pick of the week. But I think either of those, despite being completely different from each other, are both incredibly rewarding.
Thanks, chaps. So, as always, everybody, as we keep saying, if you want to let us know what you think of these films in the comments below, as always, you can follow on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and let us know as well what you think of these videos. We're trying them out. This is the first one we've done that's like a review roundup, but again, we want to try and do these every week. So let us know what you think of it, what you want to see more of or less of, or hear more of or less of, and we'll go from there. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, chaps.
Au revoir.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey,